But there are truths which the text shows us. Verse 3. Vayomer Elohim Yehi. Oh, then God said, be, like exist. Come into existence. Be is what this means. Yehi. If you don't know Hebrew yet, why don't you memorize this phrase today? What you'll find is many of the Hebrew students will share, when you start memorizing Hebrew words or phrases or verses, your mind will bring them up. The Holy Spirit will remind you of them when you need them. If you're giving a little Dvar Torah or something, right? Yehi means be or exist. Exist. Oh, come into existence, light. Oh. If you're new to our Kehal and you're like, what's with all the Hebrew? That's what we do. This is our niche for equipping people. We believe there's power in Lashon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue. Hebrew is the language of Breishit, the language of creation. Here we see evidence in the text that God himself is speaking Hebrew. It's not like, a lot of people like to say, oh, Aramaic, the oldest Semitic language, and blah, blah, blah. I hear some guys talk about that a lot. That's not you, Josh, by the way. I'm talking about Christian princes and mothers. They have this idea. No. Hebrew is the oldest language. Well, Dr. Vera asks a very deep question. Who created chaos? I think that is a very deep topic. Certainly, wicked powers were involved in perhaps amplifying the chaos, right? If we look at chaos as something more than just randomness. In mathematics, chaos means something else, right? Years back, I was really into chaos theory, right? You have this, it's basically symmetry in second-order differential equations, right? Like if you take a clock arm and then you put another clock arm on it, so it's got like two arms connected with a pivot point, and then you pull them up and you let them swing, it's unpredictable. It's very impossible to predict what's going to happen with the second one, but yet there's a pattern you'll recognize. Welcome, Shamash Yochanan. He says, Dom DeLuise created Captain Chaos. But the spiritual chaos, there's definitely enemies of the Creator that are involved in this stuff. So I'm not talking just like meteorites floating around, right? The chaos that seeks to harm. The chaos that represents a great benevolence. It's that chaos that tries to whisper through our Yetzer Hara to get us to do something, to destroy our shalom, right? To destroy shalom bayit, to destroy everything around us. You might be acting out of love, but if chaos is motivating you, if that fear, that primordial fear of Tehom, the deep, is motivating you, nothing good will come from that. You will end up destroying everything you love instead. We have to all flee from the chaos. This is why the Torah is a guide out of the desert. The beautiful commandments, they order our lives with spiritual symmetry, forming prisms and a crystalline lattice around us, protecting us from all the radiation of chaos in the universe. So Yehi Or, exist light. Okay, there's a comment from my book. You can look at it if you like. Yehi Or, and there was light, came to pass. Psalm 104 verse 2 echoes this thought about God's interacting with light. It says, Al-Te'or kasalma, note shamayim kari'ah. He wraps light as if it were a garment. He arranges or he bends the shemayim, the heavens, like a curtain. So Hashem's own radiance is shining through the shemayim, the psalm is saying. All the stars and their radiance. This is only a glimpse as he protects the world with a yari'a, with like a veil, this is the same word that's used in the tabernacle for the parts of the curtains. A single curtain piece is a yari'a. Verse 4. Vaya Elohim et ha'or kitov. Then God noticed the light, that good, literally, right? So that it was good. He saw, this is raqia, the hay has fallen away. Vayabdel Elohim bein ha'or uvein ha'choshech. So God distinguished, this word means distinguish, like to make a division, right? To make a mechitza. In the synagogue, when you separate the men from the women, right? Vayabdel. When we do Havdalah after Shabbat, right? Making a distinction between the secular and between the holy and the profane, the secular and the kadosh. Bein ha'or, between the lights, and in Hebrew we have to say bein again. Uvein, in between, ha'choshech, the darkness. Verse 5. Vayikra Elohim la'or yom. Then God called to the day. So he named the day. This is how you can express to name something. You can say kara. Kara. Kara means to call out. Right? So there's speaking involved, so this works for naming. Okay, sorry, my internet got behind with my drawing on the tablet there. Kara. Le. That's to name. Kara can also mean to summon if we use something else after it. So then God named, and then see the here? The or. He named the light. What did he name it? Yom. This is what he named it. He gave it a name, and it's a Hebrew name. The light itself is where we get time from. You see how that's working in the Hebrew? With the creation of light, God has named our first element for marking time, Yom. Yom. That's what he called it. Learn that word if you don't know it. Yom. Commonly we say day. But you see the connection between the creation of light? He has created light. And then he gives light a name. The light, the word for light in Hebrew is or. Or. And this jives really well with physics. I don't know how many of you know I studied aerospace engineering at the university, and there's a lot of physics we have to go through for that, rocket science, so-called rocket science. So, or, when you study Einstein, you learn light is everything, guys. Light, there's no time without light. And this truth is captured in the Hebrew. It's amazing. I hope you're getting excited about it. It's amazing. God, of course, the creator of light and time and the universe and how all that stuff works, he realized it. So he named the very light itself a unit of time. Yom. But to the darkness he called, so here we have that same idiom, kara la, right? You see it, kara la. The darkness he named layala. So darkness also gets a name. Layala. Please learn the word layala if you don't know it yet. Layala. And if you're new, you might think, oh, what's with all this Hebrew? Is it, this is academic. I'm just going to know these words. No. This is the language of creation. These are the words the Holy God used. It's not just passed down in a tradition and because the Jews were the ones who God called first, blah, 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 blah. No. This is the language God used. He used Hebrew, and it's evident in the text. As we get further and further into Genesis, you'll see many word plays that only work in Hebrew. Vahi erev, vahi voker, yom echad. And it was evening, erev. And even this word erev, this has some interesting undertones linguistically. So erev captures the idea of not only a boundary, but darkness. Darkness. For example, the word for raven, arov. Right? He's a dark bird. He's a black bird. He's arov. Erev. There's more to the word than this, and there's cognates that are very similar, homographs, but I'll come to your question in just a sec, Josh. Vahi erev, and it was erev. Vahi voker, and it was morning. Yom echad. And here's what's interesting. This word echad is not exactly one like we think of it in English. Echad has to do with a unification. The Kabbalah gets into some of that seeps into the prayer book. The Siddur talks about the unification of the name of God, right? But Yom Echad means a united day. So you can see, and it was evening, and then it was morning, Yom Echad. The noun is Yom, right? That's this period of time which God named the light, and it is Echad, united. This is the same word we will learn later, describes the combination of a man and a wife to be a united flesh. Or a cluster of grapes are echad, they are united. Or even HaKadosh Baruch Hu, referring to himself in Devarim 6:4, he says, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. Our God is united in complex unity. So Joshua says, here's a complex question. In the Quran, we read that Allah said, Kun fayakun, which is a mapping of Yehi. And the translation is be. Right, I thought, right, kon, right, is to be. And it shall be, as the exact phrase that Allah uttered, not like the Hebrew, be and it was, as opposed to the Hebrew where that was uttered by God was Yehi or, but he didn't utter Vayehi or. Is that an accurate understanding of the Hebrew? Yes, he did not utter Vayehi or, exactly. Yes. He said Yehi or, and then the rest of the narrator is just telling us what happened. The quote is Yehi or. And what's amazing about this, when we understand the Tetagrammaton, we know what God's name is. Please don't utter it. Everybody knows we don't say God's name out of respect for the commandment to make his name holy. We make his name holy, so his name is not like other names. That's what it means to make it holy. And so here we have this. Well, in the previous slide, more, I'll just draw on it here. I don't want to go back. Yehi. This is part of the verb from which God's name is formed. So he's even using the verb from which his own name comes to bring the universe into existence. He's eliciting the power of his name in the Hebrew. Yehi. Yeah, that's a nice point, Josh. He says, I've always seen the Quranic plagiarism as quite unthoughtful and superficial. I agree. Yeah. Plagiarizes when it wants, and then and then at other times it just seems so meaningless. Now I want to show you guys, in the Masorah, there's something happening here. You see that pay at the end of the verse? We have this pay marker here. See it? Pay. When you see this in a Bible text, or if you have my translation, I always put that in there, or whatever, this is telling us there's a paragraph marker. A new paragraph must be started, right? So it's kind of like formatting. If you've ever turned on like formatting things in Microsoft Word or something, you see these characters you don't usually see. Well, that is in our text as well. And so this is why I have the picture from the Masorah, from the Westminster Leningrad Codex. This here is represented by this white space. See? To make sure that the text does not get convoluted. That's why that's there. That's what the pei says to do. Okay, the pei says there should be space there. And so, of course, you'll see here we're on verse 5, and then here, verse 6 is about to start after that white space. And there's something I want to point out that will be important later, guys. What word does it stand for? Let me think. The samech is setum, and the pei is, I think it's pei, like mouth. I could be wrong. Paragraph. Josh wrote paragraph in Hebrew. Sure, why not? Yeah, I can't think of the exact word. I think it might be pei, like a mouth, like there's a mouth there. We also see samechs, not to mean a Sedra marker samech, but to mean like a smaller white space, and that one stands for setum. It's going to be an Aramaic word, though, Josh, so I could be wrong on the pei. P, maybe it's P. Yeah, paragraph is a good way to know what it stands for. Now, look, guys, I want you to look at this here. See the purple, what I marked in purple, with the yellow divider, Yom Echad? Pay attention. Notice it doesn't say Yom HAechad. It just says Yom Echad, okay? A united day. We're going to look at this on all of the days that follow as well. Okay, so make a mental note. Verse 6. Vayomer Elohim Yehi raqia betoch hamayim. Then God said, Yehi. You see it again? He's using the verb from which his own name comes in a command fashion to cause things to exist. Yehi. Come into existence a raqia. Raqia is kind of an interesting word. We see a verb form of this used in Exodus chapter 39, verse 3. It says, "Va'rak'u et pachei hazahav," and they hammered out the platelets of the gold, right? They hammered the gold out, so. It's a metallurgy term. It has to do with like hammering something out, like making it stretch out by banging on it. So this is a noun from that, raqia. So something which has been expanded out. So I usually translate this, the expanse. Come into existence, an expanse, betoch, in the midst of the hamayim, the waters. Vihi mavdil bein mayim lamayim. Now, for you Hebrew students, the text is a little bit weird here, the wording. So, and there came into existence mavdil. So this is a division, right? There's a division, a separator, bein, between mayim, waters, and it looks like it says to the waters. But really, in Ugaritic, we learned that a lamed can mean from, right? So between waters from waters. So I think it makes it a little bit more clear without understanding another old Semitic language. In the Talmud, Bava Batra, page 74, we have an interesting story. It says that the waters did but imitate their chief Rahav, who later rebels against God, right? Another symbol of chaos. The angel of the sea. And by the way, Rahav also means arrogant in Hebrew, right? Like one who set themselves up on high. The angel of the sea who rebelled at the creation of the world. God had commanded Rahav to take in the water, but he refused, saying, I have enough. The punishment for his disobedience was death. His body rests in the tehom, the depths of the sea, the water dispelling the foul odor that emanates from it. It's Bava Batra, page 74. Here's my little Ugaritic note if you're curious. This is from my book. So it can mean from. So that might be a little advanced topic for any of you who are into Hebrew if you want to know. And we have some more science. So we're told here, the text is telling us there's water above other water, right? We've got water that's up in the raqia, the expanse, right, of the sky. And then there's water down below as well. And there's a division, right, namely atmosphere, dividing those. Now, years ago, I remember reading about a creation scientist who has a museum in Texas, and he did experiments on fruit flies. And he demonstrated that if he put them in a terrarium that had a layer of water blocking out the sun on all sides, above and on the walls, he could increase their lifespan exponentially. So there's definitely something to this when you see how old people used to live in the biblical times, right? And people might scoff at it today. Oh, really? Someone lived 600 years. Really? Another lived 990. Really? There's a reproducible experiment with fruit flies where you can make them live longer. That's documented in my book. I can't remember the name of the text right now.